The marble halls of the United States Supreme Court, steeped in centuries of solemn justice, trembled with unprecedented tension as Chief Justice John Roberts stood behind the bench, his hands gripping documents that would shatter a titan's legacy. At 62, Roberts, the nation's top jurist for nearly 2 decades, radiated a steely resolve, his eyes burning with the weight of what he was about to reveal. Across the courtroom, Sean Diddy Combs, the 55-year-old entertainment icon, sat frozen, his usual swagger replaced by a pallor of dread as decades of buried secrets began to unravel. The packed gallery, legal scholars, journalists, and citizens, held its breath, sensing history in the making. For months, whispers of corruption in the entertainment world had swirled, but what Roberts disclosed in the next 20 minutes was a thunderbolt, irrefutable evidence that vindicated years of allegations and proved that in America, no one, not even a global superstar, stands above the law. The silence was deafening, the stakes monumental, and the nation watched as justice took center stage. If you believe in accountability, smash that like button, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from, because this saga of truth will ignite your soul. The courtroom's grandeur seemed to pulse as Roberts, with measured gravitas, began dismantling a carefully guarded empire. To grasp the seismic impact of this moment, you must understand the titans at its heart. John Roberts was no mere judge. He was the guardian of America's constitutional soul. Appointed in 2005, his 20-year tenure had forged a reputation for meticulous preparation and unshakable integrity. A former Solicitor General with a razor-sharp legal mind, he'd navigated the court through divisive cases, always prioritizing evidence over emotion, principle over fame. His chambers were a fortress of research, where every detail was scrutinized to uphold justice. Roberts was the embodiment of judicial independence, a man who stood firm against political storms and celebrity allure, revered by scholars for his methodical brilliance. Sean Diddy Combs was his polar opposite, a cultural colossus whose rise from Harlem streets to global stardom was the stuff of legend. Over 3 decades, he'd built an empire. Bad Boy Records, Sean John Fashion, and ventures worth billions. His influence permeated music, media, politics, and philanthropy, his charisma commanding loyalty and silence. Yet beneath the glitz, dark rumors persisted. Allegations of intimidation, financial manipulation, and abuse of power. Former associates whispered of coercion, but the entertainment industry's code of secrecy, backed by Combs' wealth, had buried these claims in settlements or dismissals. Until now, his aura had seemed untouchable, his empire impregnable. The case that brought these giants to clash began as a seemingly routine civil rights lawsuit, filed by former employees and associates alleging decades of intimidation and financial misconduct. What started in lower courts as a standard dispute escalated when constitutional questions, witness protection, evidence admissibility, and executive privilege propelled it to the Supreme Court. Roberts and his team, diving into the case files, uncovered a chilling pattern, a sophisticated network of influence, coercion, and obstruction that had operated unchecked for years. Phone records, financial transactions, and witness testimonies revealed not just isolated wrongs, but a sprawling criminal enterprise. This wasn't a mere lawsuit, it was a constitutional crisis, touching the core of equal justice under law. The hearing, set for a crisp October morning in 2025, drew a capacity crowd to the court's hallowed chambers. Journalists scribbled furiously, legal minds whispered predictions, and the public sensed something extraordinary. Roberts, calling the session to order, exuded a quiet intensity, his voice steady but his demeanor betraying the gravity of what he'd uncovered. Combs entered, flanked by a phalanx of elite attorneys, their briefcases brimming with motions to stifle the proceedings. They projected confidence, banking on Combs's resources to shield him, as they had for decades. But Roberts was ready, his preparation a masterclass in judicial warfare. The session began with procedural formalities, but Roberts swiftly shifted to the heart of the matter: constitutional questions about witness protection and evidence from federal probes. "This court has reviewed extensive materials from federal agencies," he declared, his voice resonating with authority. "They raise grave concerns about systematic witness intimidation and obstruction of justice. We will examine each piece methodically to uphold constitutional protections." Combs's lead counsel leapt up, objecting that the evidence was hearsay and violated his client's rights. Their strategy was clear: bog down the court in technicalities to bury the truth. But Roberts, anticipating every move, dismantled their arguments with surgical precision. "Counsel," he said, his tone unyielding, "when evidence suggests systemic violations of federal law, this court has both the duty and authority to act." The first wave of evidence hit like a tidal wave. Roberts presented financial records, displayed on the courtroom's secure screens, showing $12 million in payments to 17 individuals over 8 years. These payments, he intoned, coincided with the withdrawal of complaints or recanted testimonies, forming a clear pattern of witness tampering. The defense scrambled, but Roberts had vetted each document for constitutional compliance, rendering objections futile. The gallery buzzed as the timeline unfolded, each transaction a brick in the wall of Combs' alleged crimes. Next came audio recordings from court-authorized wiretaps, their clarity chilling. Voices, unmistakably Combs through forensic analysis, discussed intimidation tactics and financial silencing. "This recording from March 15, 2024, Roberts said, details plans to discredit witnesses and secure their silence." As the audio played, Combs sat rigid, his confidence crumbling. The explicitness stunned even seasoned observers, the words contradicting years of public denials. The defense's cries of privilege were swatted down with Roberts's citations of legal precedents, his preparation a fortress against their tactics. Federal agents' testimony followed, painting a vivid picture of a 2-year investigation. They described a network of associates executing Combs' orders, with phone records and travel logs mapping a coordinated campaign to silence witnesses. The agents' accounts, backed by hard evidence, transformed the case from allegations to a documented conspiracy. The courtroom's tension was electric, the scope of the enterprise dawning on all present. This was no isolated act, but a machine of corruption, oiled by wealth and fear. The decisive blow came when Roberts unveiled a sealed federal envelope, delivered hours before. "This morning," he announced, his voice a gavel, "we received new evidence from a search warrant executed yesterday at the defendant's properties." The gallery gasped as he described photographs, documents, and digital communications from Combs' private safe. "These images," Roberts said, displaying select visuals, "corroborate dismissed witness testimony, with metadata confirming their authenticity. Text messages and emails, recovered from encrypted devices, detailed witness intimidation plans, one from last month stating, 'The usual financial arrangements won't suffice this time.' The timing, post-subpoena, screamed obstruction. Combs' face drained of color, his legal team blindsided. Their objections faltered against Roberts's airtight legal justifications. The final evidence, audio from Combs' devices, sealed his fate. 6 weeks ago, Roberts said, the defendant discussed moving assets offshore to evade seizure after federal inquiries began. The recordings, crystal clear, left no doubt. Combs had orchestrated a criminal enterprise. The defense had no answer, their client exposed as the architect of his own downfall. As Roberts concluded, the courtroom was a void of silence. Even Combs's supporters were stunned, the evidence overwhelming. This was no smear, but a meticulously documented case, every piece constitutionally sound. Roberts had not just presented evidence, he'd crafted a legal masterpiece, balancing justice with rights. The gallery sat in awe, witnessing a historic vindication of the rule of law. The aftermath was a legal and cultural earthquake. Federal marshals executed new warrants within hours, targeting Combs's associates across states. He was taken into custody, charged with witness tampering, obstruction, racketeering, and conspiracy, crimes carrying decades in prison. The investigation exploded with 30 new witnesses emboldened by the court's action. Media, once hesitant, swarmed the story, the Supreme Court's imprimatur making it undeniable. Legal scholars hailed Roberts' handling as a triumph of judicial integrity, his precedence on witness protection and evidence admissibility shaping future cases. The entertainment industry faced a reckoning, with probes launched into similar networks of power. Congress bolstered witness protection laws, and victim advocacy groups reported a surge in reports, inspired by the court's courage. Roberts's reputation soared, his independence a beacon in a polarized age. Law schools adopted the case as a model of preparation and principle, a lesson in balancing rights and justice. Combs's empire, once unassailable, lay in ruins, his legacy a cautionary tale of hubris. This wasn't just a trial, it was a declaration. No one escapes accountability when truth meets preparation. If this saga stirred you, subscribe for more stories of justice over privilege. Share below. What does this case mean for equality under law? Because as Roberts proved, when evidence speaks, even empires fall.